Hey guys, so I'm recording this video one day after the Legends Fest 2024 Part 2 characters drop. So we have Super Saiyan 2 Goku transforms into Super Saiyan 3 Goku, and we have Super Saiyan Goku Mini from Daima. There has been, I would say, a lot of discontent with how the team has handled the Legends Fest celebration this year. And I would even say more so than that, there's been a lot of discontent with how Legends has handled just the overall design of the entire game throughout 2024. I don't think it's really just specifically limited to a Legends Fest here. So I wanted to do a video giving my thoughts. I don't even, do I want to call this like reviewing the year, or not exactly sure what I want to label this video, but we're going to be talking about a lot of their development decisions and some issues, some glaring issues that I see with the game, and just give my thoughts and opinions on what I think they should do to improve things moving forward. I actually remember doing quite a few videos like this, but it's been quite a long time. I think it was back in 2021, because if we take a look at how the game was handled this year, and we take a look at how the game was handled in 2021, I would say was easily the worst year for this game ever. I would say it was significantly worse than 2024, because at least 2024, I'd say the first half of the year was pretty good. It wasn't until the anniversary ended and we got into this like really, really bad like rut, I'll almost call it. Essentially beginning in July all the way through now is essentially we've been in just this rut almost. But in 2021, it was basically like the first 10 months of the year were just almost worthless entirely. And a lot of the releases were bad. And I remember talking about this at length in many videos in 2021. So you could even go back on my channel and take a look and see some of those videos that are still up. But there are a few I sat down and thought about this for a little bit. There are a few glaring issues with the game, and specifically in reference to the design of a lot of characters and how their design philosophy has shaped their, I guess, overall development of the game this year. So the first thing I want to talk about, I have 3 points, just bullet points written down here. We're going to go through them here. The first one I have is they're way too comfortable being safe with releases. And what I mean by this is, let's just take this guy, for example. Super Saiyan 2 Goku transforms into Super Saiyan 3 Goku. I think this character is very good. Now, I've only had a day to use him. I've only done so far the initial showcases for these characters, so I don't want to say with any sort of definitive conclusions that this guy is the third best character in the game, or he's better than X, or he's worse than Y. I don't know. I need more time to use him first. But to me, just reading what he does on paper, to me, it's very obvious that this character is very good, but to me, he just seems like a worse version of transforming Vegito Blue from Part 1. Let's go ahead and go over here and pull him up just so we can have him as a reference here. So Vegito Blue in Part 1, they are essentially the same character. You could even do the meme where it's like, I'm you, but better. And I think Vegito Blue is just a better version of this character, basically. There are very slight differences, like this Goku, when he transforms, has endurance nullification, instead of Vegito Blue, who has the anti-auto counter gauge mechanic. Right, so it's kind of like which one is better there. They both are transforming characters. They're both green. They both get their vanish back on transformation. They both have ridiculous card draw speed. They both have super easy cover null conditions. They both draw cards rapidly. There's literally like, I would say if you take a look at both of these characters, they're like 90% the same character almost. It is very, very close. I would say Vegito probably has better defensive abilities than this Goku does as well. But the point I'm getting at with this is this character, because he is so similar, like I would even say a lot of this has to do with the fact that they're literally next release, like they're back-to-back releases. This character dropped and then this character was the next release. It would, I guess, kind of make a little bit more sense if maybe this Vegito came out in like the anniversary and this Goku came out now. At least there'd be a little bit of separation in terms of the proximity of where they came out. But I mean, this guy has no identity. That is the problem with this character. And this is not just related to this guy specifically. I'm just using this as an example. Vegito drops, and then this guy drops 2 weeks later with essentially the same exact kit as Vegito. This guy has nothing unique about him, almost like zero. Like, if you were going to ask me to describe this character, my description would just be, again, you, but worse. That's what I would say. There is nothing uniquely identifiable about this character with this guy coming out 2 weeks ago. Again, I'm not saying this guy is bad. He's actually a very good character. I would say he's really good. I've only used him once, and I fought against him a few times. Seems like a very strong and capable unit. But I don't really understand the thought process behind dropping two of basically the same character 2 weeks apart in the same celebration. I also would say that this is just, again, it's a problem with them being too comfortable doing this. And this is something I talked about in a prior video too. We've taken a look at just all the releases in 2024. So the first major release we got this year was Spirit Bomb GT Goku in January. And if you really go through and look at all of the premium releases, so when I say premium releases, I mean Legends limited characters and Ultra characters. We can kind of, I guess, maybe throw in 1% Sparkings in there, but I'm not really expecting 1% Sparkings to have like super unique and different mechanics. It's really the LFs and the Ultras where we're looking at with anticipation of them being like very premium feeling. And a lot of the times being a premium character and having that like very unique feeling comes with new mechanics. Like I would argue the only two characters the entire year to come out with like very brand new and interesting feeling unique mechanics were the 6th anniversary Part 1 Fusion characters, Super Vegito and Blue Gogeta. I think these guys with the Synchro Gauge, they did a really, really good job here because it added something new to the game. It's, I wouldn't say as influential as like when the first tag characters dropped back during Legends Fest 2021. That was honestly a game-changing thing. But this is at least an attempt by them to finally introduce a system and a mechanic into the game that people have been asking for a long time. And I think they nailed it. I think they did a really good job with this Synchro Gauge mechanic. The ability to finally have fusing characters in the game, I think, adds a lot to the game. And I think that's one of the reasons why going into Legends Fest 2024 in Part 1, a lot of people were anticipating that Vegito, potentially if they were even going to drop a Vegito, and then the other side as well, that Goku Black would have actually been, just instead of normal transforming characters, Synchro Gauge characters. So maybe, I don't know, another Blue Goku and Vegeta that would have fused into Vegito Blue. And then I think this one, more so than Vegito, people were anticipating was a Synchro Gauge Goku Black and Zamasu who fused into Fusion Zamasu. But instead of that, they just gave us the 2018 transformation mechanic that we've seen since, again, the game launched, essentially from almost a day one standpoint. We've had that mechanic in the game. So there's nothing unique, premium, innovative, game-changing about these characters. They're game-changing in the sense, like at least Vegito is, game-changing in the sense that he is just completely dominating the game in terms of how strong he is. But when it comes to innovation and uniqueness and freshness, that doesn't exist here. And I think the reason why is because they've become too comfortable with just being safe. That is my conclusion with that. Again, not enough new mechanics. And I think something else to go along with this is that this can kind of segue into the second point I want to make. If they went ahead and introduced more of these innovative and new mechanics like the Synchro Gauge mechanic, it would give them an opportunity to make characters stronger in non-traditional ways instead of things like, oh, well now, and this is something we've seen. I mean, if we just pull up this guy, let's pull up the first LF of the year and let's pull up the most recent LF of the year. Let's just say Daima Goku. Spirit Bomb GT Goku, he drops. He's got 100% damage inflicted. Daima Goku, this is a character that came out yesterday, so that means he came out about 11 months after Spirit Bomb Goku dropped. He's got 170% damage inflicted. This is a perfect embodiment of their design philosophy throughout this entire year. This versus this. Instead of increasing the power level of these characters through new and innovative mechanics, they're simply just giving them higher numbers and just more of the same things. More card draw speed, more cover null. Now we have characters that have just card destruction immunity on entry, more ki, more damage, like all this stuff. Just giving them more of things that already exist in the game. And I don't think that is a very effective way of creating like an interesting environment for this game. This is only an 11 month period. 11 months. They're just literally just doing +1 to damage, +1 to damage. Next release, +1 to damage. Next release, +1 to damage. Like, that's what they're doing essentially with this. So I don't know. And then on top of that, and this will go into our second point, which is I think characters are way too complex. That is my second point that I'm going to argue in this video. This sort of feeds in the discussion that I just had about them being too comfortable with being safe, feeds into characters being complex, which kind of would seem a little bit counterintuitive, because wouldn't them just adding like more numbers mean that characters are less complex? If you look at a lot of these character releases, there's a lot of fluff just like spread out amongst their kits. I don't even know who's a good example to pull up for this, but I don't know, like this character maybe. Let's pull up like this guy. I don't know. We could pull up, doesn't really matter. Even like a newer, like let's just pull up like, I don't know, like Gotenks or something. Let's look at this character. So like, let's just take a look at some of their abilities. Like the switch ability. Do we need all this for the switch ability? Let's just see. Do they really need to have this? Do they really need to have, I don't know, let's keep going here. Like just 20% health restoration here. Do we really need to have this? Do we really need to have this? I feel like there's a lot of stuff they can just cut out and make the character more streamlined. So like cut out literally half of everything. Look at this. Do you think a new player is going to open the unique abilities of this character and then literally go through all this and read this, and then they're going to be able to understand what the character is doing? If I read this, if I took this character into a PvP match without knowing anything that they do, I would feel more comfortable using them than if I had read this first. This would make me more confused than actually just using the character blind, I think. I think what they should do is they need to rethink of how they, I guess, completely just design characters. I think you could legitimately just delete half of all of this. Just delete half of all this and then condense it into specific areas. So I don't know, let's just go through this one more time. Instead of them reducing key recovery, and instead of them I don't know, maybe healing on this, instead of them doing 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 this, maybe they just get more damage reduction and more damage or something, right? Because a lot of this stuff doesn't really mean anything. It's just there's too much in here, and I don't really think it's conducive to the style of mobile game that this is. We don't need to get more complicated than we already are. I think just, again, getting rid of a lot of the fluff in the kits would actually help the game, because it would help players become more acclimated to what these characters do. Like even me, like this, if you asked me what this character does, I would be able to tell you maybe 20% of what he's doing. You think I can just know all this off the top of my head? For every character? You think every time this character's, you think I know the fact that every time this character is hit by an art attack, he's inflicting the enemy with -1 card draw speed for 3 counts? Hell no. You think I know that? You think I just know that? What else we got here? You think every time this character uses a card, I know that he's getting 10% to the next blue and ultimate damage inflicted? Like, I think they need to, number one, just get rid of a lot of the fluff from these unique abilities, condense them into very easy to understand, just like basic stats, but then also, in place of the fluff, they need to introduce like new stuff. Like maybe not for this character, obviously, because this is just a 1% sparking, but for a major release like Goku Black or Super Saiyan 3 Goku or any of these major LFs or Ultra characters like Majin Vegeta or any of these characters, instead of just giving them, oh, well, now that he's an Ultra, guess what? He's got Cover Null for 100 counts, or he's got double card draw speed for 100 counts, or whatever it is. Give them something new that isn't 500 lines of text in their unique ability. Like, make it something that we've never seen before. Obviously, it's not the easiest thing to do, to think of every time you release a new character, oh, they're going to have a brand new thing. And I'm not saying they need to reinvent the wheel every single time a new character releases. They don't need to come up with the next tag mechanic for every single LF character. But I just think when we look at the overall design of all of the premium characters this entire year, who is really standing out? Does Spirit Bomb Goku stand out? Does Super 17 stand out? Does Nappa stand out? Baby, Super Vegeta, God Goku, Ultimate Gohan, Broly, Omega Shenron, Tree of Might Goku, Gotenks, Vegito, literally zero of the LF characters this entire year, besides these guys, stand out to me. None of them stand out. These are the only ones that stand out to me. There's nothing that makes any LF this year unique, and I would even throw in Ultras into the category as well. Majin Vegeta brings absolutely nothing unique to the table. Turles doesn't really bring anything unique to the table either. Golden Frieza, I guess you could argue the comeback is a new mechanic. I guess, yeah, we could kind of give Golden Frieza a pass. Super Saiyan 4 Gogeta introduced kind of like a new style of gauge. He's kind of like just a new style of counter gauge. I don't really know if we want to give him a pass, but this guy is just rehashed mechanics. So I don't know. It just feels like there's not any kind of innovation going on with the kits of characters this year. And I think that's one of the contributing factors to why people feel just bored of the game, because it's the same thing we have over and over again. Card draw speed, cover nullification, damage, etc., etc., etc. for every character. Gotenks has it. This guy has it. This guy is supposed to be a defense character, but even the thing with Goku Black is, it's funny because this guy, I think he doesn't do his role well enough as a defensive character, but a lot of the issues that I have with him are his lack of offensive mechanics, and mainly the fact that he doesn't have blast armor in base form, and the fact that his cover null condition is really bad when he transforms. Right? When he's transformed, the only time he gets cover null is off of the green card. And then when he first uses the transformation, like you can't do that for a character right now. There's just like certain restrictions that you have to, there's conditions that you have to meet in order to be considered a viable character right now. And I think those conditions are what is making the game not feel fun. Right? The fact that you need card draw speed ×2, the fact that you need cover null very easily, the fact that you need, I don't know, key on entry and all these different things, it makes all these characters feel exactly the same. And this, the only reason why I'm even mentioning this is because I think this also poses a problem to balancing, right? The more complex characters get, and when I say complex, I just mean the more mechanics they have tied with their abilities. I mean, we can just, I guess we'll just pull up VB. We haven't pulled up already, right? Like, the more text there is, the more abilities characters have, the more they're doing, the harder it gets to balance characters because there's just so many more mechanics that need to be considered. And I think this is just, the proof is in the pudding with this one. I mean, go through the year. We have a lot of flopped releases this year. Super Vegeta is probably the worst LF this year. In fact, I would say he's definitely Super Vegeta definitely is the worst LF this year, I would say. Flopped release here. This guy wasn't very good on release. He's a flopped release as well. LF Broly is a flopped release as well. Goku Black is a flopped release as well. So we've had 4 flopped LFs this year. And I think a lot of that has to do with the fact that there's just too much going on with the kits of each character, because remember, it's not just the character you're dropping that you have to be aware of. Like, let's just say Goku Black, right? I already have him pulled up here. It's not just Goku Black's kit that they have to look at when they're balancing Goku Black. It's every meta relevant character and how he interacts with them. So I think it's just very tough to consider every possible aspect of every single character when you're dropping a new unit, because it's not really realistic to be able to consider everything when you're creating a new unit. And so if just one interaction is off, the character is just severely hindered. I mean, the fact that VB literally doesn't care about Goku Black's gauge at all, and the fact that Goku Black can't really reset the gauge and he just has trouble. He has trouble fluidly. I don't even know the best way to describe it. Like, you compare Goku Black to Daima Goku. Daima Goku has a very orderly design with his kit. He fills up his gauge, he draws a green, the green feeds into a blue card, and that's going to reset his gauge. Very easy to understand. I think that's good design for this character because there's an objective that's very obvious and out and open for people to understand with this character. For Goku Black, he doesn't have that. And when you pair that up with a character like Vegito Blue, who's you're going to be seeing every match, it becomes a lot tougher to use this character effectively. And so that's just a big detriment for Rose. So I think just the complexity of characters, given that I think you don't need even like half of the mechanics that exist for a lot of these characters, they can condense a lot of what they're doing, but that leaves room then to innovate and give these characters some interesting mechanics instead of just, oh, well, now when this character goes for a blast card, he's going to gain 10% critical rate for 10 counts. And when the enemy switches characters while this character's in the battlefield, he's going to gain, I don't know, 10% sustained damage cut penetration. Like, we don't need things like that. It doesn't really add anything of value to the game at all. It just adds more things to read when we're reading kits, and it goes in one ear and goes out the other ear, and that's fine. Like, there's no reason for those things to exist. All right, and then so this is the final point I'm going to make, and I think this is the most important thing here, and it has to do with power creep and the overall direction with how they're handling power creep in the game. So I think one of the biggest problems that we've experienced, and this is something that they've done since the beginning of the game, and I don't really know if there's any end-all be-all solution to this, but a lot of the way that they've, I guess, addressed power creep in this game since the beginning of the game is they've just essentially been brute forcing new metas forever. Right? A good example of this is when we first saw our initial counter gauges in this game. The first character with like a real counter gauge, I guess it was Gogeta Blue, right? Gogeta Blue was the character that introduced the first counter gauge back in Legends Fest 2022. The next character we saw with a counter gauge was Janemba. UI Goku introduced it against strike cards, right? With his it's basically supposed to be just an extension of his auto dodging mechanic. Ultra Gohan has a counter gauge, and now we have these new age, I guess I'll call them counter gauges, with Super Saiyan 4 Gogeta and Majin Vegeta. So we're kind of getting to the point where these counter gauges are getting very annoying. People have mentioned they don't like the mechanic, and I understand why. So what is their solution to the counter gauge mechanic? Well, they introduce a character now that nullifies the counter gauge mechanic with Vegito Blue. So the question then becomes, what is the next step to stop Vegito Blue? And so it just becomes this vicious cycle of continuously one-upping all previous mechanics that exist. If you go all the way back, I mean, this is a very obvious way we can illustrate this. If you go all the way back to the character that introduced the very first cover change in the game, this is the very first cover, I believe. This is, unless I'm just forgetting something very obvious. Actually, is this guy? This guy might have one. Green Broly. Well, technically, it's the cover rescue mechanics were the first ones, right? Yellow Cell had this. Instant Transmission Goku had it. Green Ultimate Gohan had it. But this is kind of a little different because these are abilities that you can use an unlimited amount of times. Is this guy the first cover change mechanic, this Green Broly? Yeah. They used to call it Pursuit. They don't call it this anymore. Knocks back enemy to long range of cover changes performed against their strike arts. So there was... Actually, I guess it's possible. I don't remember exactly off the top of my head, but it's possible that this Green Broly released after Vegito. I don't remember. But anyway, Super Vegito and Green Broly are released around the same time, and they both had this cover change mechanic. Brand new mechanic back in the day. Special cover change nullification did not work back then. So essentially, there is a very long list of mechanics that just overlapped each other and were just one-upping each other. We've gone from the first year anniversary when Super Vegito dropped to 5.5 years later. We had initial cover change. This was the first combo breaking mechanic that existed in the game, the special cover change mechanic. Then we introduced, I think it was Vegito Blue, actually, the second anniversary character. I don't know where he is on this list, but second anniversary LF Vegito Blue had on his ultimate, we can actually pull this up here, his ultimate card was the first iteration of this, Nullifies enemy special actions that activate when changing cover for 3 counts. The reason why that existed was because Purple Bojack actually could stop ultimates with his cover change. So they put this on Vegito Blue. So this is the first time we ever saw special cover change nullification on a character in this game. So we have a way now for characters during the 2nd anniversary. So we went from the 1st anniversary to introduce cover changes. 2nd anniversary introduced a way to bypass or nullify cover changes. And now, if we fast forward a few years to the release of Blue Gogeta during Legends Fest 2022, we have a way to now cover change against characters that have special coverage. Well, it's not really cover changing, it's just combo breaking. We have a way to break the combo of characters that have special cover change nullification, and it is this. While this character is in one of the following states, if own unique gauge is full, consumes entire unique gauge to auto counter enemies, blast arts, and most range special moves and special arts. So this auto counter mechanic became the counter to special cover change nullification. And so now we've gotten a few characters that have the auto counter mechanic. Again, Gogeta, Janemba, UI, Ultra Super Saiyan 2 Gohan, Super Saiyan 4 Gogeta, Majin Vegeta. Now we have a character that counters the auto counter mechanic with Vegito. We have, let me go down. Nullifies enemies' auto counters and evade actions. So again, we see this constant pattern of one-upping. So we have Mechanic A. Mechanic B is going to one-up Mechanic A. Then we have Mechanic C that's going to one-up Mechanic B. Then we have Mechanic D that's going to one-up Mechanic C. And I presume this is just going to persist forever, right? They're eventually just going to make a new character that counters Vegito Blue's anti-auto counter mechanic. It's going to happen. It's going to. So what is the way out of this? I don't know. I don't know what the way out of this is. It is just an ever omnipresent, I guess, zeitgeist sort of thing that persists in games like this, where they kind of have to have this persistent power creep mechanic, just for, well, I don't even know if I want to call it a mechanic, just power creep problem that's just constantly looming in the background, because otherwise people wouldn't summon for characters. But it's just very easy now to get to the point where every character is just nullifying everything in the game, right? And another mechanic we can bring up to talk about this is buff removals, right? We had, again, Blue Gogeta really introduced a lot of issues. Ultra Blue Gogeta has endurance nullification tied to his Rising Rush. We have characters like Vegito Blue that has the same thing as that. We have characters like Fusing Super Vegeta who also have those things. Gotenks with his main ability popped his endurance nullification on his main ability. So it's really important now for almost every single team to have either a character that is like indestructible or a comeback or just buff removal to allow the team to be protected from enemy Rising Rushes. Eventually, we're going to get a character that has a Rising Rush that has like, it's going to be, essentially what it's going to be is it's going to be, let me actually pull this up. It's going to be the same mechanic on this character. Let me see. Where is it? It's going to be this. No, this. It's going to be this, but it's going to be with this text added to it. We're going to get a character at some point that's going to have endurance nullification tied to the Rising Rush, but it's going to be uncancelable eventually. And eventually, we're going to get a mechanic that nullifies indestructible. And eventually, we're going to get a mechanic that nullifies the comeback mechanic. It's going to happen. Inevitable. It's inevitable. It's just the way the game works. So again, what is the solution? What is the problem solver for this issue? The only thing I could really think of, and I actually do think, I think I talked about this like literally 4 years ago. I'm taking inspiration of this idea from Hearthstone. For those of you who have not played Hearthstone, I don't even know if the Hearthstone still works this way, because I have not played the game in many, many, many years. But the way that the game worked was they had formats for the game, and I think that might be the best way to move forward with this game. The way that the formats in Hearthstone worked is you had a standard format, and then you had I guess we'll call it the open format. They call it wild. At least they called it wild. I don't know what they call it now. And the difference was, for the open format, you could use any character in the game. Everything everything. There were no restrictions. You could use everything. There was nothing that was off limits. You could bring any card in the game you could put any card in the game into your deck, and there'd be no restrictions. For the standard mode restricted you to bringing cards and putting cards into your deck that were in the current, I believe they called it the current age or era. It was one of those things. So what they did was they essentially split up the game into like the different development cycles. They would have like, I think they called it like the year. Like it was the year of the Kraken, or it was the year of the Minotaur, or whatever it was. And so only cards that came out during the era, which I think each era was like 1.5 to 2 years or something like that. Only cards that came out in those eras were usable in those eras. So if you had like a super ridiculously overpowered card that came out 2 years ago, I guess we could say if you have a super ridiculous card that came out in one era, and then that era ends and you enter a new era, you would only be able to use cards from the new era, and you wouldn't be able to use the super ridiculous broken cards from the previous era. And the reason behind this, the structure of the eras, is so that you would not be stuck. It's literally exactly to solve the problem we talked about with power creep in this game. It's to solve the problem of constantly needing to one-up the entire game forever, right? So instead of entering this loop where we have cover changes, special cover change nullification, auto counters, auto counter nullification, the way you get around that is, instead of having to one-up those things for 6 years, we have like a 2-year cycle of characters competing with each other, and there's obviously going to be power creep within those 2-year cycles, but then you start over from scratch again 2 years later. Now again, that's not going to mean that characters that are no longer usable in the current era are irrelevant, because you would have a second format that you could use whatever you want. So let's just say Ultra Majin Vegeta is like the best character in the game, or whatever, or Vegito Blue is the best character in the game, whatever you want to say. When this era ends, you won't be able to use Majin Vegeta or Vegito Blue in the standard format, but you could still use them in the like open format. And then when we start getting new characters in the next era, you would essentially start from scratch again, and you would build, I guess they would sort of like build up the characters during the era period until we got to the end. And then, you would probably still end up having some like ridiculous meta, and then you would reset again when the next era starts. So that solution, I don't know how well that would work in a game like this, but it would certainly provide us with a reprieve of all this insane power creep. And eventually, I mean, if they just continue like this forever, eventually we're just going to get to a point where characters are literally nullifying every mechanic. Like eventually there's going to be some kind of peak here, right? This is not just going to continue forever. Eventually we're going to get to a point where characters are literally just nullifying every mechanic in the game. And I think we're already starting to see that, actually. If you have played PvP with a lot of the newer characters, you have teams like imagine a team like this: Majin Vegeta, Super Saiyan 3 Goku, and Vegito Blue. Do you guys understand how impossible it is to defend against this? You have double card draw speed in all characters. You have Majin Vegeta who can refill his hand with the green card. You have Super Saiyan 3 Goku who's drawing cards and has double card draw speed. And you have Vegito Blue who's drawing a full hand of cards, and he's immune to every single auto counter in the game. You could, I'm pretty confident you could legitimately combo for the entire duration of a match. Like if you get a combo started with that team, there is a chance that the first combo you start in that match could last the entire match. I'm not even kidding. So we're kind of already at that point here. So this not even like a suggestion. This is like saying something has to happen here. And I don't think simply saying, oh, well, now we're just going to introduce a character that, seals the entire hand of the opponent when they enter the battlefield. Like that is just not a healthy way of proceeding here. There's got to be some overarching solution to fix this, whether it's adjusting the battle system itself or something, instead of just introducing a new character that is going to help fix the problem, because that I don't think is the solution. I think there needs to be some kind of overhauling of either the battle system itself, or they could introduce like a new format setting. Right, so what I just talked about with like the different eras, I think, where you'd have like essentially like a year and a half or a 2-year era period where every character released in like a year and a half period is usable with each other in standard mode, and then you would have an open format. So essentially what I'm envisioning is there would be 2 different ladder systems. You would have PvP for the standard ladder, and you'd have PvP for the open ladder. The open ladder is literally just what we're doing now. It's every single character that's ever released in the game since day 1 of launch is usable in the open system, and then the standard system you would only be able to use characters that released during that specific era period. I think probably how they would do this if they wanted to implement something like that is they would just start like, they would just say like, okay, starting now, we're going to have these 2 systems. The open system is just going to be the same way it's always been. But then the standard system will say every character that released in 2024 is usable. And we're going to start the new era with the beginning of the 7th anniversary. The 7th anniversary is going to introduce the new era. So every character up until the 7th anniversary will be usable in the standard format. And then once the anniversary begins, we'll have a new sort of like refreshed standard format that only characters starting from the 7th anniversary can participate in, and then that will build up from there. But then all the characters that weren't previously usable in the standard format can continue to be used obviously in the open format. And so you'd have 2 different PvP ladder systems, and then each PvP ladder system would have its own rewards, and you get double rewards I guess if you did both of them. So that's the way I'm looking at this, and the only way why I would think that would work is because you're lowering the development cycle and shortening the development cycle to like 1.5 year, 2-year cycles instead of just the entire game, right? And I think that would also help the open format too. It wouldn't just be a good thing for the standard format, it would be a good thing for the open format too, because you wouldn't need to one-up characters like Majin Vegeta and Vegito Blue, right? You would have characters that are similar to them in power level, but you wouldn't need to one-up them because those characters would be incredibly powerful in the standard format. So I don't know. I'm just kind of spitballing at this point and thinking of how they could fix this, because there's a very clearly a major problem with the game, and this is something that's been going on for many years. But I think we are slowly starting to get to the point now where it is really getting to like we're approaching. I don't know if you guys have been on roller coasters, but it's like we're getting to that point in the roller coaster where we're slowly ascending to like the drop point, and we're almost at the top. So before we get to the top, it is really important that we have our seatbelts on, right? You don't want to get to the top of the roller coaster and then all of a sudden you figure out, oh wait, actually my seatbelt isn't on. Like, that's not what you want to do. Okay, you want to make sure that all your T's are crossed and your I's are dotted, and I don't know if that's the case with this game right now. So if you guys have any solutions to this, or if you guys have noticed any other major problems with the development of the game during 2024, certainly let me know. But this is a video that I definitely did want to make because I definitely had a lot of things to say here. So hopefully you guys enjoyed this. This is not really a video that I enjoy doing. I felt like I needed to make this similar to how I did in 2021. This is not me being negative about the game. This is me wanting to find solutions for major problems in the game because I enjoy the game. I do not want to see this game fail. And so I'm doing my best to provide my insight and my thoughts and my opinions on how things can change. I am interested in hearing how you guys feel as well. So I hope you guys enjoyed this video, and I will see you in the next one.